Hi, my name is Guy Lawrence and thanks for tuning into my podcast today. If you're enjoying these conversations and you want to check out more of this transformational work, be sure to come back to guylawrence.com.au and join me as we go further down the rabbit hole. Enjoy the show.
We got there. Please say hi in the comments anyway. Let me know where you're watching this from. Really appreciate it. I've invited Tom Campbell onto the podcast today, and he's kindly accepted to share his wisdom. For those of you that don't know Tom, personally, I've been a huge fan of his work for many years, and I've had Tom on the podcast several times before, and he's always been kind enough to share his wisdom and his time for everyone listening today. Tom, if I'm not mistaken, you're a physicist, a consciousness researcher, author of My Big T.O.E trilogy, international lecturer, and you describe the nature of our larger reality, provide a complete history of theory of consciousness, I should say, and explain our purpose and connection to that larger reality. For me, that sort of sums it up, and I'd love to be able to tap into your wisdom today about a big picture view of actually the current circumstances that's going on. So first of all, Tom, how are you, and how are you with everything that's going on?
Oh, well, I'm fine. I'm healthy. I don't have COVID-19, and I hope I won't get it. I'm 75, so I'm in that high-risk group, but I tend to be very healthy, and it's hard for me to even remember the last time I got the flu. I think I can't even remember the last time I got a head cold. So I tend to be one of these people who just stays healthy all the time. But I'm being good. I'm staying in. I'm not going anywhere. But to me, that's just life as normal. I basically don't travel around except when I have events. And I do have an event coming up in July, and I don't know whether it's going to actually happen or not.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm starting a virtual event on Zoom. It's going to be the same sort of thing. We call it an immersive or an intensive, because the subject is, I think the title is Exploring the Larger System with Thomas Campbell. And basically I teach people how to get into an intuitive space where they can get into the databases, where they can heal, where they can remote view, where they can communicate telepathically, and that sort of thing. And it takes 4 whole days plus an evening, and it's work all the time. It's like 12, 14 hours a day. And I introduce subjects, give some instruction. I'm the coach. I send them off to practice. It's not just all listening to the lecture. I send them off to practice, and they practice, and they come back. And we talk about their experiences, and then they go back. And it's just back and forth like that for, about 14 hours a day for 4 straight days. So there's little else that happens. You know, they eat, they sleep, and they're with me or doing their experiences.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well. Most people learn at least the basics about how to do all those things. And most people have at least some success with it. Some people are very successful with it. Some people not so much, but the ones not so much, they understand why they're not so much. You know, they know where their blocks are and what it is they have to do to overcome them. So
for sure.
So we're gonna do that on Zoom. We're coming up with one. We're going to try to put it together real quick, just because there's a lot of people that have a lot of time at home now.
They do.
So we're gonna offer this thing at Zoom, and it's going to go through the same process. It'll take the same amount of time. We'll cover all the same topics in the same way. It'll be a remote audience, but we'll have rooms for them to go to, so they want to chat with each other. So there'll be 4 or 5 different rooms that they can intermingle and socialize in if they want to.
Amazing.
As well. So we're going to do that, and we're going to put it at probably about a fifth of the price. So instead of $2,500, it'll be like $450. So it's going to be, because we don't have the expenses. You know, if we have to house 80 people, at a pretty nice hotel and we have to buy food for 80 people for 4 days, all that is very expensive. So we don't have all those expenses, therefore we can afford to do it a little less. And because this is our first one, there's going to be technical difficulties, no doubt, because we've never tried to do this before. So we're making it, pretty inexpensive, probably about half of what it'll cost otherwise.
Fantastic, Tom. I mean, technology is allowing us to do these things and come together, which is amazing. And I must admit, under the current circumstances, I do find myself slowing down a little bit and not submersing myself in more things, even though my life hasn't changed much. It's a really interesting psychology that's happening behind it. And I really would love you to speak to a little bit about what your thoughts are going on, because obviously with all your research and your wisdom over many, many years, I'm sure you have a few philosophies and thoughts behind the current circumstances. And I'd love you to talk to that a little bit, Tom.
Okay, I would like to talk about it in terms of a bigger picture. I mean, we all have heard probably many, many times about what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and stay 6 feet apart from other people, and don't get the disease, don't pass it on, and so on. And all of that's very good advice, but I don't want to talk about those sorts of things.
Totally.
I'd rather talk about kind of the big picture viewpoint of it, if we see it from a much bigger picture. First of all, crises, and big crises that don't just affect a few people, but are global crises, are kind of a rare thing. I don't know, this may be the first global crisis that we've had. And that has a lot of meaning to it, just the fact that it happened. Whenever there's a lot of change, whenever you have a crisis in your life, something that's personal to you, and this is personal to pretty much everybody. There's very few people that are in a place where nobody has this disease for, hundreds of miles in any direction. Most everybody, there's people that have this disease just, within a mile's radius. There's probably dozens of them that have the disease. So we now have this crisis that gives us an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn. Whenever you have big changes, you also have big opportunities. They just come together. Whenever you get knocked out of your rut in your daily life and suddenly have to live your life differently, that's a time of a lot of learning. So from a big picture viewpoint, I'm hoping that a lot of people will get a little plus up in their understanding of themselves and their life and what matters and what doesn't matter as they go through this crisis. Just because they're going to be pushed out of their comfort zone, they're going to be pushed into things that they're going to have to deal with that they didn't have to deal with 2 or 3 months ago. Like a family being together, eyeball to eyeball, all day long. There's a lot of families, but that's going to be a difficult thing. But difficult things are where we learn. So I see this as in the big picture, it's very educational. It can be something that teaches us. Other big, but they were more national. Like in our nation, we had a big depression in the late 1930s.
Yeah,
it's called the Great Depression, and I think it was probably worldwide. Many economies had that depression. I suspect there's some people that didn't notice, but a lot of people were caught up in that same economic depression. And that turned out to be a very educational thing. And the people who lived through that depression were changed. They weren't the same people that went into it. They were more sober. They were more focused on the things that matter and things that don't matter. They were more self-reliant. So they learned a lot from it. You'll learn a lot about caring about other people. At least in this country, nobody starved to death. There wasn't a lot of famine. There were a lot of people who didn't have jobs, and a lot of people that had no money, and a lot of people that had no way to buy food, but food was there. Food was found some way, and soup kitchens were set up, and people could go get things to eat, their local, wherever they lived. And we got by, but we took care of each other. And, we got back to the barter system a little bit. Banks were closed, you help me plow my field and I'll give you 3 chickens, that kind of thing. We had more of that going on. So it was a educational time that changed people. And some of the changes were for the worse. Some people got real stingy, but most changes were for the best. They saw bigger pictures. And I think we've got a chance for that now. In fact, we have had now the first global cooperation that I think has ever taken place.
Wow, yeah.
We've got people all over the globe, all caring about other people, because that's why you stay in. You stay in because you care about other people. It's not just you stay in to keep yourself from getting it, but you stay in so you don't pass it around. You don't get it and then share it with other people. And that's going to save 100,000 lives. There'll be 100,000 people after this is over that will, grandparents will still be around to, help raise and play with their grandchildren that otherwise would not have made it, just because people are caring. They're staying in. They're trying to slow down this pandemic so that it doesn't completely overwhelm the medical facilities. So the hospitals don't get so overrun that they can't really do things for people. So that's good.
That's good. Are you hopeful from when we go back to normal that we would have actually learned the lessons?
Yeah, I think we definitely will. When we go back to normal, I think we will have learned something. Now, if 90% of the people go back to normal and don't learn anything, but 10% do, I see that as a big win. Okay. Evolution is a slow process. It's not that everybody has to get it. It'd be nice if everybody got it, but that's not going to happen. Some people are too self-centered. They're just not going to grow up that much. But I think enough people will get it that it'll make a difference. In order to help other people grow up, you don't need a majority. All you need is a minority. Maybe a 10 or 20% is all you need, because that will be the example for their neighbors, for other people they know, and it'll just start to grow, just like the virus. It's catching this low entropy state of being happy, being positive. That can be catching just the way being negative can be catching. If people around you are negative, it helps pull you down and makes you negative. So if we get more people take a positive big picture look, even if it's even if it's 5% or 2%, that will be good. 2% of, I don't know how many millions of people are affected. Many. How many billions of people are affected? 2% is a huge number of people. You have that many people grow up, that can't help but be good for us. No, everybody won't make much out of it, but there's a lot of people now who care enough to be trying to stay inside and, make this thing less damaging and less deadly for other people. And that's good, because flus have always come around and killed a lot of people, mostly old people, sometimes very young people, but they've always done that. I can remember being a young teenager, and swine flu, I think, went around, and a couple of other flus where they closed the schools because there was only 10% of the students were still there. All the rest of the students were homesick. Well, that was in the late 1950s, early 1960s. I mean, it's not like this is a new thing. This is the first time, a big endemic, thing went around the globe. It's been doing that for a long time, but this is the first time that people have cared enough about other people to stay home. Before, business as usual. All right, I'll go to work until I'm too sick to go to work, and then I'll stay home. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. People die. Yeah, people always die from flu. So we don't let that interrupt our rut that we're in. We don't let that interrupt our workflow. We don't let that interrupt our, our money coming in. We don't let that interrupt anything in our life. We just keep our life going on, and people either live or die, or however that works out, it works out. And that's been our attitude up until this time. And now we see an attitude where people are saying, yeah, it's going to be bad for the economy. Yeah, it's going to be hard on businesses and other things, but it's the right thing to do. We're going to help hundreds of thousands of people, survive and survive well. So it's a good thing. I find that a very positive note. Now, some people are doing it just because everybody else is doing it. They're just followers. They're not really seeing themselves as caring about other people. They're just, so their state made a law that says they're not allowed to go driving around, or the police want to know, where are your papers that say you're a part of the essential business going on here? Go home. Some of it's that, but I think a lot of it's that people care.
Yeah.
And that's different. I mean, care on a global is a global caring, not a local caring. That's different. It's easy for people all from the same country to kind of get together and all pull on the oars together because their country needs them. But globally, never seen that before. So I'm seeing some new things here that I saw that when China first got it, they immediately put their data out on international, internet sites to define the virus, what it looked like. And they had some pretty good science going on there, but they shared it. So that now we have this new virus that's maybe 3 months old, and we've probably done more science and done more study and looking for things that help faster than we've ever done before. Usually it runs through our population, and then we start studying it and looking at it, and the next year maybe it comes through again, and after a couple of years we understand it enough to help people out with it. But we know we were right on top of this. The science guys, the virologists, the people who need to understand this to help us find ways to counter it, to tell us the things we need to do. They were right up front. And yeah. I thought that's very good. See, that shows us that we've got global science going on there, not just China does it and they do it because it's good for their people and they really don't give a damn about whether anybody else knows it or not. If they want to know it, they can figure it out like we figured it out. You see, we'll show up that we do better than they do because we've got better science than they do, and that's good for us, and who cares about other people because they're not us. That's the kind of attitude that most nations had before. They took care of their own and don't really care that much about anybody else, but that didn't happen this time. Totally. We saw international sharing from the get-go, and we've seen international cooperation, because something like this virus, it's so easy to catch that if anybody doesn't cooperate, then it's just going to spread more and more to everybody. I mean, we can't help it. We go around these days. We get in airplanes and we fly to different countries and different places, and there's enough commerce going on between us that we're realizing that we live in a global society now, not just our local society. We make a social system at the global level. And that's defined because we're interactive at a global level. Now, we've been interactive at a global level with some science, and we've been interactive at a global level with commerce, with selling things. But this is the first time we've stepped up to interact at a global level with something like this, something that's fundamentally caring about other people. And that caring now crosses all the national boundaries. So I'm very positive from the big picture viewpoint of what we might learn from this and the precedent it might set. I mean, I've run into some people that feel like globalism is a terrible, evil thing that needs to be denied. But globalism isn't a thing you go do, it's a thing that just happens. In any social system, once that social system becomes interactive, then some kind of structure, some kind of rules will start to self-create that help optimize that social structure. So if at a level of a family, that family interacts and they interact with each other, then that family will start to have rules about things that should be done and things that shouldn't be done. So in a national level or a state level or a regional level, any place where you have a level of interactive people, you will have rules starting to develop of how that interaction needs to take place for the benefit of everybody that's interacting. Well, now we're seeing that at the global level. We're seeing that we've realized that this global, that we humans are interactive all over the globe. Not only commerce, not only passing science around in universities, but people traveling, people on vacation, people just visiting relatives or doing work or going to seminars. People are all over the place. And that's a good thing. So once we have this interaction globally, we're going to start seeing rules, etiquette, behavior, manners, whatever, on a global level. And I believe we're seeing the very beginnings of it now. So it's not the globalism, a thing you can do or not do. If you have social interaction on a global level, you're going to develop, manners and rules and ways to optimize that interaction. It just is. So the internet has delivered us globalism for information and for,
of course,
pictures. And the airplanes have done the same for our avatars, for our bodies. They go all over the place in airplanes. So we're at the very beginning stages of having enough global interaction that we're going to start to develop a global culture. And as we develop a global culture, now that may be another century, who knows? But as we develop this global culture, it'll be developed with the idea of making it a more effective place for all of us to live. That's what the rules are for. I mean, look at the rules in Australia. You're an Australian and you have rules and you have culture, but all those rules are there to help people get along, to help people be effective in their interactions. That's what the laws are for. So we will now, I think, begin developing that on a global scale.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to watch. I mean, I know you speak about growing up a lot as well, and I feel like this is forcing us to look at aspects of ourselves we didn't want to probably look at for quite some time. And I'm also aware as well that I remember our last podcast we did, Tom, and we spoke to almost the essence of it all, which was love versus fear. And I think that's something we can certainly lean into in these times as well, because it can be very difficult sometimes, obviously, when we're caught up in fear, to even come back and step back and look at a big picture viewpoint of things.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's another big lesson we have. Not only do we have this lesson in sharing and caring, but we have this big lesson in fear. Fear is never helpful, and you should not stay in your quarantine and not go outside because you're afraid. You should stay in your house in your quarantine because that's the right thing to do. That's the smart thing to do, not because you're afraid to go out. You see? The fear is never helpful. Some people would say, well, it's only because everybody's afraid is why they stay in. So fear is a good thing. No, fear is not a good thing. If you stay in only because you're fearful, you'll be one of those people that after it's over, you won't learn anything. You won't have learned a thing. You won't grow up any. If you stay in because you see it's your responsibility not to keep feeding this thing, then you'll learn something from it. That'll be very positive. It's a good thing. So education is good. Fear hurts in many ways. If you fear something, you immediately raise the probability of that thing you fear happening. So it's more likely. If you are fearful, your biochemistry shifts into the fight or flight mode because of all the tension and stress you're feeling. And that immediately lowers the effectiveness of your immune system. So those two together are a powerful match. You raise the probability of being infected when you lower your immune system's ability to deal with it. See, those two are really a 1-2 knockout punch. Not good things to go together. And the last thing that's bad about fear is that fear is infectious, just like this virus is infectious. just like being positive is infectious. So if it's all about fear and you read all fearful things and it's all about fear, 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 then not only you're helping it become true and lowering your immune system, but you're passing it around. You're making that fear dominate. If that fear dominates, then we will have the worst possible experience, not the best possible experience.
Totally.
So you need to stay positive. And to stay positive, you need to accept things the way they are. It is what it is. Deal with it positively. Accept it. Okay? Don't take unnecessary risks, but life is risky. You have to take some risks. You may have to go, you may have to go to grandma's house just to help grandma with something she can't do. Well, maybe you'll just have to be smart. Grandma may have to go sit in her bedroom while you come into her house, and you may wear a mask and she may wear a mask or whatever, and maybe you fix the furnace for her or fix the air conditioning or do some plumbing or do something for grandma that was something that was difficult for her to live with, but you do it as safely as possible. So you take risks, do what you have to do to help people, and accept whatever happens. Okay, you took that risk, and what if on the way there, you somehow caught the virus? Well, all right, deal with it then. Take yourself away from everybody else. Go someplace else, don't infect the rest of your family, or send them someplace else if you have someplace else to send them. Go spend time with grandma, So, but you have to accept risk. You have to know that life is uncertain. You have to live gracefully with that uncertainty. And if things happen, they happen, and you just deal with them. So, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? Worst thing, you could get sick and die. All right, well, accept that. That could happen. If that happens, then deal with it. You'll get sick and you'll die, and it's not that big a deal. You'll be able to come back and get another avatar and get back to work soon enough. So it's just, the fear thing is just bad all the way around. It's got nothing to recommend it. It has no good side. It's all downside. So just let life be helpful, take chances, but take them smartly. If you have to go out, you have to go buy groceries, well, go buy groceries, but wear a mask, stay away from people. It's, don't talk. It's better that if you just don't say anything. If you walk up to the counter with a bag of groceries, we'll put them on the belt, let her check them out, hand her, your charge card or whatever. You don't have to sit there and chat and talk about it, just because every time we open our mouths to speak, little water droplets escape with our breath. There's any number of people I've heard, they'd say like, well, I went to there was a lady who was writing on the internet. She said that she and like 20 of her friends all met together in a little social. She says, nobody sneezed, nobody coughed, nobody was ill. But in 1 week, 17 of the 20 all came down with COVID-19 at the same time, which means they did get it together at the same time. It's not likely they all got it separate places and they all just happened to get sick at the same time. So somebody there was infectious and didn't know it, didn't have any symptoms. Nobody sneezed, nobody coughed, everybody just talked and chatted. Well, just talking to somebody puts little water droplets out. Air moves in and out of your mouth when you talk. Those water droplets carrying virus get airborne. So one of the things we can do other than stay 6 feet away is just keep our mouth shut. Buy your groceries, do what you have to do, and say as few words as possible. That would be a good thing. Or wear a mask. That helps too. That keeps a lot of those water droplets in. If you have to talk, then put a mask on. Totally. So be smart, but take the risks you need to take. Do what it is you need to do, and let whatever happens, and you be good. Find joy, find opportunity in this. Now you're in your house with your whole family and nobody goes outside. Well, get to know each other, get to talk to each other, make friends with each other. I mean, that's a great opportunity. Find things to do that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Help each other with lessons. Help each other, do next year's math, next year's science, next year's history. just do things that are interesting. It's not that you have to do it, but if it's educational and you're learning, most people enjoy learning. So borrow some books, go to the internet, start learning things about other societies, other cultures, other ways of doing things. How big do whales get, really? Is the humpback whale still going extinct? Learn things. So a lot of time is a massive amount of information. We all have a whole library, international library of video and books and information, on our computers. Wow, let's use that. Find
Totally.
something fun. Yeah, find something fun to do with it.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
Absolutely. I think it's a lot. I think everyone was in shock at first, and there's almost like these phases that people go through. And to me, anyway, it feels like things are just accepting. People are starting to settle down a little bit and find their feet with it all. What I find interesting, though, Tom, is with this is like, being able to let go of that fear, because there's still so much around in terms of the media, the input, the very things that which you choose to like focus on. And there's certainly a sense of losing control. Like, I think that's one of the greatest fears, right? That we lose control.
Oh, yes. Control is the big thing. Yeah. Control is
huge, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very big fear, losing control. And that's an ego and fear went to control. They feel if they can control things, they can make things come out good for them. And that is a big one. Why do people want money? Because money produces power. Why do people want power? Because power produces control. At the root of it, control is the real big issue. But like I say, you have to learn to just accept it. You don't have control. You're not in control. Let life happen however it happens. Be smart with it. Don't be stupid. Be smart, but let it unwind however it unwinds, and then just deal with it.
Do you think that's why we have such a need sometimes to be constantly checking and hearing different people's theories and information, and that can even be driving the fear response, because that gives us a sense of control in the first place? Yeah. Why we do that?
I think that's some of it. I mean, it's good to stay informed.
Yeah,
it's good to learn what you can learn, but you don't want to be obsessed with it. Obsession comes from fear. You don't want to have to look at everything. And as you read stuff that's basically just fear, which means a lot of the stuff that's on there, most in the media, fear-driven content is probably, 80, 90%, because fear sells. The media is not really in the business anymore of providing information. It's in the business of providing entertainment. And anything that grabs your emotions, anything that particularly is fearful, that's good business. People will read that. It'll be the article or the post that was most read. This post has 500,000 views. This newspaper sold out and did another run because they have, what do we call it? Stuff that triggers emotional reactions to it. And the emotional reaction that's easiest to trigger is fear. That's the simple one. So that's the easy one. That's the one gets triggered most. And people will read that because somehow they feel that if they know everything about it, they'll be safer. Well, yes, stay informed, but you don't need to read what everybody says about it. All that's opinion. You ought to stay informed with facts. Opinions, a little bit of that goes a long way. You can read an opinion here or there just to amuse yourself, but to sit there hour after hour reading about people's opinions is just a waste of your time. Better to go do anything else other than that.
And everyone's opinion is amplified now because of the internet. It's so easy to get pulled down into different rabbit holes consistently. And
that's another thing people need to learn, and maybe this would be a good time, is to separate opinion from fact. That's called critical thinking, and some critical thinking skills would be really good. Look at the stuff you're reading and say, how critical is that to me, making the choices I need to make. And if the answer is it's not critical at all, then let it go. You don't need to spend all your time wringing your hands and building up anxiety that's suppressing your immune system, making it easier for you to catch this thing. Just let it go. Find a couple of sources on the internet where you can get the facts of what's going on, and stop all the little stories, all the opinions. And a lot of people offer their opinions as facts. And of course, anything that happens these days, there's at least a few hundred conspiracy theorists that will jump on board to come up with some wild story that makes it the whole thing's a conspiracy of some sort. So you have all that's fear-based. It's all fear-mongering, because fear gets attention.
Yeah. You know what I've been doing, Tom, as well, is to support, to stay as centered as I can when everything is going on, is I've more discipline with my sleep, my morning routine. I'm actually ringing one person a day that I might not even spoke to in years, just to pick up the phone, ask them how they are, have a conversation, reconnect with people in different ways.
Yeah, good idea.
Good
thing to do. Yeah.
And it's been so rewarding. Like,
yes,
I get to the end of the day and I feel fulfilled. I'm like everyone. I've been affected greatly by my financial situation at the moment. Like, half of my business disappeared until we go back to normal overnight, but there's so many other things that I can bring focus in on and do. Like, my wife is 6.5 months pregnant with our first child. That would be so easy to get caught up in fear and anxiety around that, with the unknown. But we're holding space for each other, and we're coming from this place of love each day, and it's beautiful, and I'm actually really enjoying the process as much as I can.
Yeah. And it's good that you can be with her more hours than you would be otherwise.
Yeah,
that's good. And when she has that baby, it would be wonderful if you could stay with her for more time, and be there and be a part of that. It's not good when mamas come home with babies and the husband's only there 4 hours a day.
Yeah, of course.
So it's good. They well, the most interaction they have with their babies is to watch them sleep or something like that. That's unfortunate. So to have time at home, to start using the tools that let you work from home, these are all things that I think we're going to gain. There's a lot of telecommuting going on now that didn't happen before. And I'm hoping that people realize, hey, this is really a better idea. We should have been doing this all along. How much money are we saving, by doing telecommuting rather than making bodies come into an office? How much more work are we getting done? How happy are the employees? It's just such a positive thing. Telecommuting.
Absolutely.
How much less fumes do we have in the air? How much less pollution? Less cars and traffic on the road? I mean, you can make a really long list of the advantages of telecommuting. And of course, it'll be a little hard at first because people will be telecommuting and they'll have young children at home, which will make it a little harder. But I'm sure they will be able to deal with that and make rules. That's what, again, it's a social system. They all have to optimize together, so they make rules. So it's going to be rules that, mom or dad or both have to go work. They can't be pestered, and kids will have to learn to entertain themselves or do things, and they'll learn to be more responsible. But parents can take a break every hour or so and spend some time with the kids, because they can also work after the kids go to bed. So they'll work it all out, and just coming to the idea that, hey, this is possible. We could telecommute. I'm hoping telecommuting makes a big leap forward after this.
It has to, surely.
Yeah, which will improve. It's improving the tools. See, we're talking here over Zoom, and I imagine Zoom, probably increased its user base by a factor of 10 or 100 or something. Suddenly, they've got so many people using Zoom. I'm surprised that it even works still. That it isn't crashing from bandwidth problems.
The Facebook Live dropped out like 25, 30 minutes ago, so it's still definitely unstable at the moment for all
Yeah.
its users.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I know. I have a friend, Keith, from Britain, and he said all of Britain, all their schools, all of Britain went to Zoom.
Wow.
So Zoom now has suddenly, in a few months' time, they've probably raised their bandwidth need by a factor of 100 or 1,000, who knows? But they're doing it pretty well. I've been using Zoom a lot, and it's a little sketchier than it used to be, but it's amazingly stable for the bandwidth that's suddenly being consumed.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Just like today, Tom, just to wrap up the conversation, with everything we've covered today, right? And we've spoken about obviously the situation. We've spoken about love and fear. We've spoken about letting go of control and acceptance. Is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners just to ponder on?
Well, yes, there's one that I'd like to leave them to think about, and that is most people look at themselves and say, I'm not all that fearful. I don't have a whole lot of fear. And that's not really a problem of mine. But I'd have them look at negativity. Look at negativity. Do you in your life, in your daily life, ever have negative feelings or thoughts? By negative, I mean annoyed, irritated, frustrated, unhappy, angry, feeling unappreciated. All of these things are what I'm putting in this basket of negative thoughts, as opposed to positive thoughts like joy, peace, tranquility, satisfaction. Those are all positive things. So does your life have anything in it that's negative? And how much? How much of your life has negative feelings and negative thoughts in it? And the average person, if they're honest, will say that they have a whole lot more negative things in their life than they have positive things in their life, that their peace and tranquility and satisfaction and joy are in the margins. They just skirt across that every once in a while when things just all happen to work out right. But most of their life is struggle and pain and anger and annoyance and frustration. Well, that means you have fear. If you did not have fear, you would not have those negative things in your life. That negative stuff in your life is a result of ego. Ego is a result of fear and belief. Fear generates both ego and belief. Okay, so you have beliefs and you have ego. Ego is about me. Well, what about me? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my kids and my family and my stuff and my job? And it's all about you rather than about others. So if you have in your life more negativity than being positive, and most people do, more complaining, that's negative. If that's what runs your life, you need to change that. It's just to give people something to think about. You really need to change that. It's because you want to control. You want things to be the way you want them. You want people to be the way you want them to be. You want your children to be the way you want them to be. Your spouse, your boss at work, the coworkers. You have a way that if the people were just like that, boy, your life would be perfect. So you have this idea of way the world should be. And when it's not that way, you get stress, you get anger. You're not, you don't feel good about what's going on. You have a need to change. You want to manipulate. You want to lay down the rules. You want to force. All that stuff is from living in a negative space. And that is what makes you miserable. That's what makes you unhappy. And now that everybody's kind of been kicked out of the rut that they were in, and everybody has to reevaluate who they are and why they are and what they're doing and how they relate to the other people around them. Because once you get kicked out of your rut, now you have to think about those things. When you're in your rut, you just do what you do. and everything takes care of itself because everybody's in their own rut with you, and your rut and their rut has learned to, flow together. But now everybody's been kicked out of the rut they were in. They have to ask these questions. They have to look at things differently. And if you find fear there, if you find negativity, well, that means you're not doing well. You have too much need for things to be your way. That's ego. Okay. And that's what makes you angry. That's what makes you upset when things aren't your way. Because of course you know that your way is the right way. Your way is the best way for everybody. And you'll convince yourself, oh, I'm only saying this for those people. I want them to change because I know that's better for them. Well, everybody feels that way. And everybody pushes back when other people push at them and try to manipulate them. So we have a whole bunch of egotistical people all trying to manipulate each other, and each one pushing back from the manipulation from the others. That's why we have this big messy stew that we live in all the time, and that we live in these soap opera lives with so much negativity going on. Just let people be who they are, accept them the way they are, accept life the way that it is, and be happy with it. When I say accept it, I don't mean accept it begrudgingly or through clenched teeth, but accept it. It's okay the way it is, because the fact is that everything is exactly the way it needs to be in order for us to learn what we need to learn. And what we're here for is to learn.
Totally. That's a great place to end it, Tom. Thank you so much. If I will put links to the show notes for anyone listening to this right now, if they pause the audio, the video, and scroll down, be able to link back to Tom's website, and also Tom, your virtual retreat coming up as well. I'll make sure there's a link in there if people want to check out that as well.
Oh yeah, that's just a new thing that's going, and we just mentioned it, and it had like, I don't know, 15 or 20 people in like in an hour, because the price is so low,
Totally.
But if people can't get in there, I did a TMI thing. I think I mentioned that earlier. I did a TMI thing, and they can go there and look at that. Won't be as good as being able to ask questions yourself and interact with the people who are going to be there, but it'll be the next best thing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Tom, thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate all the content and everything that you're constantly putting out there to help support people. And I'm just glad to be able to be a small part of it and contribute as well to get these conversations out. So,
well, thank you, Guy, and I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Tom.